Welcome to the download of MoneyBox Live, the programme about your money. Today, it's all about timeshares, a fantastic way to get a great holiday or not quite what you bargained for. Back to the bad high-pressure sales tactics of the 1980s or a modern way to take a vacation. Well, it all depends on who you talk to. And at MoneyBox, we've heard from many listeners who are unhappy. But as ever, we want your experiences, your stories and concerns. Please email moneybox@bbc.co.uk. And FYI, a timeshare is where you buy the right to holiday in an apartment or hotel, normally for a number of weeks a year. One listener in the unhappy camp is 83-year-old Jeffrey, who bought a timeshare about 15 years ago. Welcome to MoneyBox Live, Jeffrey.
Hello.
Take us back to that time. How did you buy this timeshare?
Yes, well, I'd gone to Malta for my first holiday there, and walking along the seafront, I was stopped by touts, I would think you would call them, and approached to put my name to a document, say that I was a part owner of a complex. That's what they put it down to.
And how much money did you hand over? How quickly did it all happen?
Yes, it all happened within half an hour. I had to sign a document, pay £200 up front, and was offered a week's holiday as soon as I wanted it. And as quick as that, within about an hour, because it took us round the complexes to have a look at them, see what we thought.
Did you read the contract in full before signing?
I did say to them I would like time to read the contract, but unfortunately it was quite a big document with several pages, which would have been gobbledygook to me. So unfortunately they wouldn't allow me time to read it, take it away or do anything. It was sign now or nothing.
Where are you now? Have you used it in the last 15 years? How much is it costing you?
I realise how much it's cost me, and it's doubled in price. My partner doesn't want to go anymore, and we're too old, but we use it half a dozen times, and I've tried to persuade friends to go, but other than one person, nobody else has been. So it's been used 7 or 8 times in 15 years. And
you mentioned there the price, the annual fees. What are they?
Well, they started off roughly £200 a year. The latest one I've just got for November is £390.
So it's doubled in 15 years. Have you tried to get rid of it? Have you thought about, I want to get rid of this?
I was asked by one person who was interested. Unfortunately, I lost track with them, and that was it. And I'd heard stories about trying to get rid of them. I must admit I never followed it up.
OK, what would you like to happen now?
Well, I would very much like to happen to the company I'm dealing with to come along and, after asking, to say, yes, we're pleased to take it off your hands with no cost whatsoever, and you can walk away. You've paid us enough money.
How significant is £400 a year, £500 a year for you?
Well, I'm on pension, what they call pension credit, which is a basic pension plus help from the government. And I'm very fortunate. My kids help me, but without that, I wouldn't survive.
Joining us today, Laura Johnson, Consumer Advisor at UK International Consumer Centre. Laura, welcome to MoneyBox.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Exiting a timeshare, getting out of a timeshare, the biggest problem. Why?
So where timeshare used to be exceptionally popular, it's definitely fallen out of favour in recent years. The way people holiday change, holidays are much more accessible. So timeshare is less of a modern equity to have.
Can you sell them?
It's difficult. I mean, we see people trying to sell timeshares in all kinds of places, including on eBay and similar, but definitely it's one of the more difficult things to do.
And if you're in one, you've signed a contract, is basically that's it?
You've absolutely signed a contract, and potentially you are going to be bound by that contract for whatever the agreed period is, without kind of further investigations. But there may be options for timeshare owners.
OK, hold that thought. Jeffrey, can you remember how long you signed up for?
No, I never read the contract completely. I have a funny feeling it could have been as long as 30 years. I remember they did say at the time, don't tell them how old you are when I went to sign it. This was one of the assistants.
Because you were, what, late 60s and...
I was mid-late. I was actually on pension already.
So unlikely to travel in your late 90s?
I think that's what it was, or maybe they're not supposed to ask people of my age to sign up. I don't really know.
OK. Now, the House of Commons actually has published a report into the problems of timeshares only earlier this year. What were the conclusions briefly, Laura?
So the conclusions are definitely that people have been aggressively and inappropriately sold timeshares throughout the 80s and 90s. Since then, people have seen problems with increased annual fees, problems in selling, and massive problems in getting out of contracts.
Basically, Jeffrey's problem. So what options then do you have for Jeffrey?
OK, so first of all, Jeffrey, we'd recommend that you actually contact your timeshare company first and foremost. Ask them what the options are. Ask them if they'll let you out. We are seeing that it's more common now for timeshare companies to let their customers go.
Anything else?
Well, we would definitely recommend that you seek some formal advice. I mean, you may have rights regarding that purchase. So speaking to an approved government body such as the International Consumer Centre would definitely help. OK. Also with me today, representing the timeshare industry, is Paul Gardner-Bogard, Chief Executive of the Resort Development Organisation. Hello, Paul.
Hi, good to speak to you.
What options do you have for Jeffrey?
Yeah, it does sound, I mean, initially, Malta, I'm pretty sure touts were banned after whenever
Jeffrey's experience, yeah. Doesn't really help Jeffrey, though, does it?
Going back over the history thing, and obviously it all sounds very strange, and it would not be, I mean, listen, a proper timeshare would not be sold to someone like Jeffrey at his age or in this particular manner. So it's interesting in what happened to him. This doesn't sound like one of our members at all, because we have a code of conduct and our members are bound by that code, and the various reasons on which members are allowed, of course, to leave, and indeed the length of the period of the timeshare. If he wanted to drop us a line at info@rdo.org, we can certainly look into this. We have a sister organisation called Quick Checks who works with trading standards in this country, and they'd be happy to look at it if these are not RDO members, and I suspect they're not, to see what we can do to help him out and get him out of his difficulty.
Let's just talk about that. You have 30 developers in your membership. What sort of things, what code of conduct have they signed up to? If you were to buy a timeshare, one of your members, how much protection, what sort of protection would that give you?
Well, they are protected. Firstly, of course, the developer has to comply with all the regulations and legislation. This is a very regulated and legislated product, and I take issue with Laura over. This is by no means a dead product. There are 600,000 UK families enjoying timeshare at the moment, over 12 million across the world, and 1.2 around in Europe. So by no means are people not enjoying their holidays. They are.
Although those 600,000 may want to sell, some of them.
Well, people always want to sell, and people always want to buy. I mean, that's the nature of a market. So. Yeah.
OK. So what protection do your members give people like Jeffrey? Like on surrendering. So Jeffrey wants to hand this contract back.
Yeah. Well, I don't know
what would your members do?
Members are, in terms of they can't travel, if there's death in the family, if there's inability to pay anymore, illness, then these are all reasons why surrender should be granted by an RDO member. And a lot of RDO members go a lot further than that and just say, fine, your fees have been paid. If you want to leave now, then please do so. That's absolutely fine with us. Others charge a small fee for doing so. So, as Laura quite rightly said, should contact the developer, but I don't know who this developer is, and they're certainly not an RDO member from the sound of it.
Jeffrey, have you contacted the developer and said, I want to surrender, can you please let me out?
Are these the owners of the complex? No, I haven't. I wouldn't really know how to go about it. I thought that would be a legal matter.
Laura?
Really, you should have all of that information in your contract. But if you need help doing that, you can definitely come to the International Consumer Centre. What we do is we work with a network of centres across Europe. There is an office in Malta who could contact the developer for you if you had difficulties in doing so. So we can try and help you with that as well.
Fantastic. Now, Jeff,
how would I get the details of the company that I would need to contact?
we will go on.
We can look at your paperwork and we can try and identify them for you.
Jeffrey, fantastic news there. If you were to go back and advise that 67-year-old you walking along the seafront, what would you say to that? What would you say to the younger you, Jeffrey?
Do it.
Don't do it.
Simple as that. Don't do it.
Jeffrey, good luck. And we'll put Laura will get in touch with you and give you the details to contact to try to see if you can surrender your contract. Thank you very much, Jeffrey, for joining us. Now, although most of the timeshares bought by Britons are in Spain and other sunny destinations, not all are. With me now is Sandy, whose parents bought a timeshare in Scotland over 30 years ago. Hello, Sandy.
Hello.
Again, getting old now, can't use it. How long have they wanted to get out of this timeshare for, do you think?
Many, many years.
How often have they used it?
In the 30-odd years, they've had it once.
How are they health-wise?
They've got chronic lung disease, otherwise known as COPD, but they can't use it because if you look on the website of the actual resort, it's geared towards mountain climbing and hiking, ski slopes. It's not something somebody with chronic lung disease can use.
What's the annual cost? What's it costing them a year?
Well, last year they wanted 423 maintenance. This year they want 500 and something.
And is that a lot of money for your parents?
Well, they're on state pension only, and they £40 a month, £35 a month. It's a lot of money to them.
So what does the resort say? Presumably you've gone to the resort. What does the resort say about getting out of this contract?
Well, they said it's something like it's called a voluntary surrender, and that you fill in the forms for that, and it goes towards the committee for a ballot. And if you get picked, I'm assuming it's only if you get picked, but they want £1,500 plus VAT plus last year's fees to actually surrender it.
Do your parents have well over £2,000?
No. I was thinking about it. They'd have to go if they'd let them, they'd have to do some sort of payment plan, which would take them well over 2 years to do. Then they'd have another 2 years maintenance on top. So it's like a vicious circle. They'd never get it finished.
How are they about this? I mean, both of them are quite, seriously unwell. What's it doing to them?
They're very anxious about it. They panic whenever they get letters. In July they got a demanding letter for last year's fees and this year's fees, and they panic and they get very upset.
Paul, can you explain why owners have to pay to hand back a timeshare for free? I mean, you have to pay to hand it back for free.
Sorry, say again, you have to pay to hand it back for free?
Yeah, presumably they paid a wodge of money to buy this to start with. Yeah. And you say it has a resale value. Well, if it has a resale value, why are you handing it back for free with a payment attached to it? I mean, that suggests there is no resale value. That actually you're having to pay someone to take it off your hands. There is no resale value.
Well, I can get a word in edgeways. It depends on the property, the resort. I mean, I don't know this particular resort, but I do know it's not an RDO member. So we're having a series of non-RDO member issues we're talking about this afternoon. But it depends on the quality of the resort, the weeks being offered. There is a resale market. It's not been doing particularly well at the moment because of the COVID slump, obviously, and it's got to pick back up again. But what people are doing, of course, and these people, again, don't seem to have used their timeshare very much, are buying holidays in advance. Now, if they decide not to do that, then a timeshare resort is a club. It is a community of members, and those members have an owners committee who regulate the rules of the club, and those owners decide the conditions on which people may surrender. Now, if you've got a resort that is run by a big developer, they will abide by the RDO code. They will allow people out. These people should have been allowed out. I can't speak for this particular resort, though I do happen to know where it is. But I do happen to know that the owners in those resorts have laid down the conditions on which people can leave. Now, we are quite happy to put some pressure on to help if we can, getting these people out. And if somebody would like to send us the details, we will see what we can do and see if we can help. Again, it is the holidays that people are paying for. If they then decide that at the end of the day, they do want to leave, then we are quite happy to see people leave. But they've had the holidays, so
the initial upfront payment, then you're not buying anything. What you're buying is the holidays in advance, and therefore there may or may not be a resale value. It literally may be worth nothing.
You're buying all the resort facilities for years ahead, the quality of the accommodation, the choice of different locations, etc., etc. I mean, I've owned timeshare. Our family used timeshare very successfully and happily, and we resold ours at the end of the day for a percentage of what we bought it for, and we were very content. It is horses for courses. It depends on the quality of the property that you've bought into, like anything else.
So some have value at resale, some don't. Sandy, during this process of helping your parents, you found out a little more about the terms of the contract, and that was a little shocking.
Oh, you mean the perpetuity? Yes. Apparently lasts for 125 years.
So when your parents die, what does that mean for you?
That means that I'm liable for it, and if I die, my children are liable for it. So
no, you're not actually liable for it. You can actually disinherit the timeshare, and so again, if it's an RDO member, family members do not if they don't wish to.
RDA members, right? Laura, what advice or help do you have for Sandy and her parents?
I think taking Sandy's parents' condition, age, health into account, there may well be an argument to leave, even if there isn't a code of conduct, especially regarding the extraordinary changes to their circumstances, which means the contract might be something called frustrated, which effectively might allow them to exit from that.
Okay, so frustrated contract. Should she go to a solicitor for that?
No, she should be able to get advice from the National Helpline, but of course she can give us a call on our helpline number. It's 01268 886690. We have advisors on the phones until 4:00 every day who are able to give advice on this plus other topics.
Okay. And Sandy, your parents were so desperate to get rid of this timeshare, they paid a company to do it for them. Briefly tell me about that.
Yes, they were contacted by a company stating that they were legally allowed to do this and everything, so they believed them, gave them money, and all they did was lose their money.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Sandy. Well, many, like Jeffrey and Sandy's parents, desperate to get out of their timeshares, and because of that, fraudsters have spotted an opportunity. In fact, this is highlighted in the House of Commons report. Timeshare owners are being targeted by scammers. And MoneyBox listeners Paddy and Terry got in touch to warn others. Terry writing, "We are sick to the back teeth with unsolicited calls from scammers and fraudsters offering to get our money back for us. We have now chosen to have our landline disconnected to avoid them." And Paul writes, "I am being bombarded with messages from scammers promising to help me. They all want money, of course. How do I know who to trust?" One MoneyBox listener, Wendy, turned to the internet for help to get out of her timeshare.
I did a Google search, how can I get out of a timeshare? So the first one that came up, I had to pay a certain amount to have my timeshare advertised on their system, and that was probably another £1,500. They said they'd sold it. I had to pay the court fees and translation fees. I paid more money. And then it fell through. And then I found out they had gone into liquidation. I seem to get phone call after phone call of different companies saying they understand this has gone bust and can they assist in trying. So I kind of went along with it and then started with another company.
How many companies do you think you dealt with overall?
7.
And how many went bust?
All of them.
And how much money have you handed over to supposedly get rid of your timeshare?
To get rid of the timeshare, probably about 5,000 or 6,000 to actually get rid of it. But then obviously the additional monies were buying into different schemes to try and get out of it.
Why did you have to buy into schemes to get out of your original timeshare?
Because I didn't have to initially. Basically, they said it cost me maybe £2,000 to get out of it. However, the carrot is we can get you all your money back plus more if you invest in this. If you buy into our scheme, we'll give you discount on getting rid of your timeshare. We won't charge you for that. But so it's like that constant carrot being dangled that, oh, great, I could get that £12,000 back I've already spent.
But did you?
No.
So you never got your 12 grand initial cost of the timeshare back?
No.
And how much more money have you handed over to these 7 companies, all of which went bust?
Probably around about 35,000.
And what did that 35 grand buy you?
Nothing. I mean, the platform that I bought into, they actually got me out of the initial timeshare. I wouldn't get any money back, but they'd get me out of it so I didn't have to constantly pay maintenance fees each year.
Right, so they got you out of that, yep.
They got me out of that, as far as I'm aware. However, I'm still getting calls now saying, oh, no, you're still the owner on the database. And I'm thinking, am I? Potentially, I could still owe 7 years' worth of maintenance fees. I don't know.
How much would that maintenance be?
It'd be thousands of pounds.
So did you understand what you were handing money over for?
Yes, I did. I did understand because it was a scheme where you'd get these basically coins, so to speak, credits onto your account, and they were actually going to be, you could either use them yourselves to buy cheap holidays, or they would sell them to buyers for a certain amount, and you would get your money back plus the extra bit, which
did
is
you?
then no. Saying that, I did get the odd payments come in.
The odd one?
Yeah.
To convince you the scheme works?
Yeah, exactly. I got £300 here, I got £400 there.
But in total, you handed over how much? 35 grand?
Yeah.
Looking back at this, Wendy, this sort of 8 years of trying to get out of a timeshare that you now fear you may not have got out of, and it cost you 35 grand. How do you feel about that?
I feel extremely stupid, vulnerable. I was so depressed. I was crying all the time, just going through it. And every time I get another one of these phone calls, it just makes you sink lower.
Wendy there. And in fact, we've had an email from Sandra who seems a very similar story. She says that timeshare exit agencies that never get you out. We have spent 30k on such people and nothing back. Laura, who can listeners trust? Where can listeners go if they want to exit their timeshares and avoid the scammers and the fraudsters?
If people want advice on their timeshares, they need to go to a reputable government-funded agency. They need to get proper advice. We are a government-funded agency. We provide impartial advice. It doesn't benefit us in any way whether people go with resale companies or not, but we can guide people through what their rights are, what their practical steps are, and how to avoid some of these scammers, because unfortunately exiting timeshares is rife with people that are just trying to get your money.
So your website and your phone number, where should people go?
So people can hit our website at www.ukecc.net, and our phone number is 01268 886690, open 10 till 4 Monday to Friday.
And you have people manning or womaning the phones right now expecting people to call?
We absolutely do.
Fantastic. Right. Well, even for happy timeshare owners, many have not been able to use their holiday rentals after the last 18 months, like David. Hello, David. Welcome to MoneyBox.
Good afternoon.
Now, you love your timeshare.
Yeah, it's been good to us. Yeah, last 2 years we haven't been able to go, no, but before that, very happy.
So why are you unhappy? Why are you unhappy in the last 18 months?
Because we've not been able to go. We've had to pay the fees, and not being able to go. We've been told we were contractually bound to pay the fees, despite the fact the resort actually closed. So therefore, that's, to me, they wrote the contract first. But we have been paying the fees to keep on their good side, so there's no sort of issues in the future.
And how much?
It's, our fees were about £850 per year. It's €938 for the year just gone, which equates to about £850. I should point out that a lot of people are complaining about the rise in the cost of the fees. It's actually a drop in the value of the pound that's caused most of the rise.
OK, that's a thing to bear in mind. Paul, paying fees, £1,500, £1,600, £1,700 for the fees, not being able to go to the resort. Is that fair?
Well, it's very unfair to the extent that nobody's been able to travel because of the pandemic, and obviously resorts have been closed, then opened, then closed, depending on what the authorities have decided to do. In Spain last year, the resorts were closed for a period of time, then they were allowed to open, then they closed again. And in fact, all the developers, I've done a quick head count of our major developers this week. All developers are offering different schemes to make up for what people have lost in terms of extra weeks, credits going forward, opportunities. And I think this particular resort grouping, I think the board of directors of the resorts were consulted as to what they wanted to do. That board is the committee who represent the owners. And I think the decision was made, in fact, that they would put what money there was that had been saved into capital projects to improve the resorts and also to reduce fees going forward. But please don't forget that resorts can't just be closed. They have to be maintained, the water systems, air conditioning, all the rest of it. You can't just close a resort down. And reopening a resort is actually very...
And David, we've heard a lot about the problems of exiting. Do you have an exiting strategy for your timeshare when you're no longer able to travel or well enough to travel or can afford to travel?
We hadn't thought about that. When I was in my late 40s and we first thought about living in Spain permanently, and then that morphed into just a 2-week timeshare. But really, death or old age wasn't on our radar. Having listened to some of your callers now, I think I will investigate. But I would probably use a Spanish solicitor, a local solicitor, and say we want to get out. What's the way of doing it? OK.
We've had an email. Well, thank you very much, David. And we hope, as we all hope, that we won't be able to travel again next year and holiday at some stage. So thank you for joining us, David. We've had an email from Susan, who actually says quite a positive story. She wants to point out to listeners that buying a timeshare is not equity. She has bought mostly in the second-hand market and have used, of course, apart from lockdown, every year. They holidayed in Britain, Europe and the USA, and notes that maintenance can be expensive but should be assessed as the equivalent of a price of an annual holiday. She says never buy from original sellers because the commission on sale can be large. So that was from David and Susan, a positive message there on timeshares. Sadly, though, that's all we have time for. My thanks to Paul Gardner-Bogard and Laura Johnston. Thanks to you, of course, for your calls and emails. We couldn't make MoneyBox Live without you.